A very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to begin the. We are beg- May I have your kind attention, ladies and gentlemen? We are about to begin the session. I request you all to kindly take your seat. Welcome to ASSOCHAM ITMF strategic session on the theme Scaling Through Synergy, Building Local Capability to Power Global Textile Value Chains. To begin, I would now like to invite all our dignitaries to kindly come on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Updeep Singh Chhatra, Chairman, ASSOCHAM National Council on Textile, Mr. Juan Perez, President, International Textile Manufacturers Federation, ITMF, and CEO, Textile Santander, Spain, Dr. Christian Schindler, Director General, International Textile Manufacturers Federation, Mr. Neeraj Jain, Managing Director, Vardhaman Textiles, Mr. Manmohan Singh, Group Executive Director and Chief Marketing Officer, Grasim Industries, Aditya Birla Group, and Mr. Nilesh Hundekari, Senior Partner and Head Fashion and Luxury APAC, AT Kearney Consulting India Private Limited. And Mr. Prashant Agarwal, Co-Founder and MD, Wazir Advisors Private Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for all our honorable dignitaries to kindly, may I request them to kindly take their seat. Thank you. To begin, I would now like to invite Mr. Updeep Singh Chhatra to kindly welcome all our honorable dignitaries with a welcome shawl. Please put your hands together for Mr. Juan Perez. Dr. Christian Schindler. Mr. Neeraj Jain. Mr. Manmohan Singh. Mr. Nilesh Hundekari. And last but not the least, Mr. Prashant Agarwal. Thank you, sir. I would now like to invite Mr. Updeep Singh Chhatra to kindly come and do the opening and context setting remarks.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to welcome our distinguished guests, industry leaders, policy makers, and our international delegates for this session. The title of today's session contains 4 powerful ideas: scaling, synergy, local capability, and global value chains. At first glance, they appear to be four separate ideas, but in reality, they are the one continuous journey. Local capability creates competitiveness. Competitiveness creates confidence. Confidence attracts investment, and investment enables scale. And scale flourishes through collaboration. And synergy ultimately strengthens global value chains. And scale without capability eventually loses competitiveness. And capability without collaboration never achieves scale. So it's a bit confusing, but it is a fact. The future belongs to countries that can build both. And that, I believe, is the challenge before global textile industry. History, you would have seen, rarely announces when it is changing direction. Industries evolve quietly for years. Industries evolve quietly for years before reaching an inflection point. Only later do we recognize that a new era had already begun. And we have seen this, and we have been witnessing this since 2020. I believe we are living through one of those moments today. Supply chains are being redesigned. Technology is redefining manufacturing. Artificial intelligence is redefining productivity. And sustainability is becoming the license to operate. Consumers expect transparency. Geopolitical developments are reshaping sourcing decisions across the world. And this is not another business cycle, but it is a structural transition. And leadership in every structural transition changes hands. Around the world, we continue to study different models of industrial development. China is one such example. Many attribute its rising simply to lower costs. I believe the lesson is much deeper. For decades, China built capability. Policy encouraged investment. Capital accelerated expansion. Competition rewarded innovation. Here I would like to give a very small part of the reading I read a few days ago in a book. What after China is still China. So there was a very interesting aspect in that book which I liked very much. It said that if you have 4 friends in China, what will they do if they want to start a business? If the first one opens a petrol pump or a petrol gas station, all 4 will do gas station. Because in competition, they bring in innovation. So they would like to compete. Whereas the rest of the world, if there are 4 friends, one will open a gas station, other will have a pizza center. The 4th will do something else, the 3rd will do something else because they didn't want to compete with each other. Hence, that innovation part in China has been brought through competition. So that is why I say that competition rewarded innovation in China. Standing still was never an option. Capability became a national discipline. Now, all said about China, India's journey, of course, will be different. Our democracy is different. Our institutions are different. Our strengths are different. But one lesson is universal. And that lesson is competitive advantage is never inherited. It is built day by day, year by year, factory by factory, every single day, investment by investment, and most important, skill by skill, and last but not the least, innovation by innovation. India today stands before perhaps its greatest manufacturing opportunity since economic liberalization. The world is searching for trusting manufacturing partners. Global supply chains are diversifying. Technology is lowering barriers to innovation. India possesses a complete fiber to fashion, I would say, ecosystem. India has entrepreneurial energy, engineering capability, a young workforce, growing domestic demand, and increasing global confidence. But opportunity alone has never produced leadership. Leadership belongs to those who build capability. And capability becomes meaningful if it is executed consistently. If I may offer one personal reflection, over nearly 4 decades in this industry, I have seen companies with similar technology, capital, market opportunities, but they produce dramatically different outcomes. The difference was rarely strategy. The difference was execution. Execution with discipline, execution with speed, execution with consistency, and ideas that created those possibilities. But ideas alone can create only possibilities. Capability creates competitiveness, execution converts both into results, and sustained execution creates trust. This is where I wanted to come at the end. That is the trust. And India's aspiration of becoming a $100 billion export in textile and apparel is entirely achievable. But targets themselves achieve nothing. Capabilities do. The investment we require is not merely investment in capacity. It is investment in capability, technology, automation, advanced materials, digitization, research, design, skills, leadership, so on and so forth. The future will belong to those who innovate fastest, who collaborate the best, and who adapt the quickest, and who earn the deepest trust. And that brings me to today's partnership. ITMF, International Textile Manufacturing Federation, Manufacturer Federation, has more than a century been one of the world's most respected platforms for knowledge. In fact, this organization is since 1904. It has helped our industry and understand change, prepare for change, and shape change. And we are privileged today to have Mr. Pares. It's difficult to pronounce the first name, Mr. Von Pares, and Dr. Christian Schindler with us today. Mr. Pares is the president of ITMF, and Dr. Christian Schindler is the Secretary General of ITMF. I also warmly welcome my fellow panelists, Mr. Neeraj Jain, Managing Director of Vardhaman Textiles, Mr. Manmohan Singh, CEO and CMO of Grasim Industries, Mr. Nilesh from A.T. Kearney, who's a senior partner, and our very knowledgeable panel moderator, Mr. Prashant Agarwal, who's a co-founder and JMD of Wazir Advisors. No company transforms an industry alone. No country builds competitiveness alone. Industries become globally competitive when knowledge, policy, technology, capital, enterprise move in the same direction. That is true meaning of synergies. Factories produce textiles, capabilities create competitiveness, innovation create differentiation, trust create leadership. If the 20th century belonged to those who mastered scale, and the early 21st century belonged to those who mastered efficiency, the next era will belong to those who mastered trust. Please underline this word, master trust. I firmly believe India possesses every ingredient required to build the world's most trusted textile manufacturing ecosystem. The opportunity has arrived. The responsibility is ours. History remembers those who built capability, who had the discipline to execute and the courage to lead. I believe India is ready. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It now gives me great pleasure to invite Dr. Christian Schindler, Director General of ITMF, here for his remarks. Dr. Schindler, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Deep, for this kind introduction. Thank you for having us and for collaborating with us. You already dropped a few important words that I will refer to, keywords. To the word capability, I would like to share with you data about capacities in different countries. ITMF, as was introduced, is a very old association. Hopefully I don't look as old as the association's age, but it covers really the whole value chain from fiber producers, machinery, down to home textile producers, and everything in between, including integrated companies that are, of course, also producing garments. I have prepared a small presentation during which I would like to share some of our data that we are publishing every once in a while, some in a faster rhythm, some in a slower rhythm, that help us a little bit set the stage where we find ourselves as an industry globally, but also where India is positioned within this global value chain. It also helps us hopefully to stimulate some additional thoughts and maybe then also discussion. So I will talk quickly about our survey that we do every other month. Anybody who wants to participate in this survey from the industry, please give me your business cards, because this week and next week we are conducting the survey for the month of July. Then our machinery shipment statistics, which we do every year. And then our international production cost comparison that we do every 2-3 years. The last data is a little outdated, but still relevant to understand the basics of each country's position. So in May, that was just 2 months ago, we asked our members that participate in the survey, what is the business situation? And you can see globally it's minus 17 percentage points. That's 16% said they are in a good business situation, 33% on the top. You see the numbers say they are in a poor business situation. The balance is minus 17%. And you see percentage points. And you see that this is going on now for too long, obviously. And in red, I just included the Indian data, and you see that India is not too far off, a little bit above, a little bit below the global average. We have much more data on the different regions in the world: South Asia, South America, East Asia, North America, Europe. I don't show all the data. I now just show the data for the global average and India. We have then this question about business sentiment 6 months into the future, business expectations. And you see here that there was optimism in the last 3-4 years globally, but this optimism never really materialized. As you can see, the business situation below stays very low, but the optimism was always there because people thought, oh, it has to become better, but actually it didn't until today. India, as you can see now, is at plus 4 percentage points as compared to 16 percentage points globally. Now, what are the reasons? And we ask the question, what are your main concerns? And above you see the results for May and then for March, and you see that demand globally is the biggest issue for everyone on average, right? Followed by now all the challenges we are facing with regard to higher energy prices, higher raw material prices, geopolitics as an overarching headache to everyone, lack of talent. But the first four are the most important. On the lower left-hand side, you see India's specific concerns. It's really, first of all, about high material prices and high energy prices. Geopolitics was a big issue, now much less. And demand was much less an issue in March, but now, as you can see there, it's a much bigger issue. It was a much bigger issue, and now it's a less an issue because raw material prices, high energy prices, have taken over at the top of the concerns. So we do that along all these different segments, from fiber producers, chemical producers, spinners, weavers, down to home textile apparel producers. So if you participate, please let me know. So that's where we are in May. I will be interesting to see what it's like in July. Then the machinery shipment statistics. That's the statistics where we asked the textile machinery companies, LMW and Rita and all the other ones, Toyota, you name them, Picanol, how many new machines have they shipped? And of course, including all the Chinese machine manufacturers, how many machines have you shipped to any country in the world? And we do that for practically the whole value chain. I'm just sharing a few of them. And only for short staple spindles, you see that last year it was 6.2 million. That's below the average. And that's, for the last 20 years, that's just a number, that doesn't tell you much. Now, if we look at a region where these machines went to, you see that 95% went to Asia. That excludes Turkey. If you add Turkey, it would be 99%, probably. But 71 alone went to China. That's the line on top of the columns. So what do I want to say is that, if you see at the next slide, is that China is still not only having capabilities, but they are transferring them into capacities. They are building capacities and they are renewing their capacities in literally all the segments. So this is a very similar slide that you will see now in the next few slides, and I will rush through them to save some time. But you see China last year invested 4.4 million, India 0.84. Maybe the numbers are a little higher, a little lower, if calculated by different organizations, but the trend certainly is the same. And then the usual suspects, and you see it's literally Asia, only one country outside Asia, which is Egypt. In texturing machines, a very different picture, because there was huge investments in China last year and also in 2024, above the long-term average. So that's the treatment of man-made fibers, filaments, of course, and you can see that here China is even more dominant. Asia is even more dominant, 98%, and China responsible for 92% of all these machines. And where do we have India in this segment? Well, you're all aware that India needs to catch up when it comes to man-made fibers, right? Along the whole value chain, whether it's the texturing of filaments or the production of man-made fiber, fabrics, in whatever man-made fiber area you are talking about, with the exception of cellulosic fiber and fabrics. So there is a lot of capacity to catch up with. You don't have to duplicate China, but there's certainly room for more investments and capacities to build up. Weaving looms, very quickly, above average. Last year, you would wonder where this investment happened. Well, you guess right. It happened especially, now looking at the technology, in water jet looms, that's man-made fiber looms, basically for the weaving of man-made fibers or filaments. And it happened in Asia once again, and to a large extent, not as much as before in China, and very interestingly, India is catching up in that segment. So in that segment, India is catching up. That's good, and it shows that there is a potential if things all fall together. And then the usual suspects. The same is true now for large knitting machines. 81%. It's not as dominant as in the other segments, and China not as dominant as in the other segments, but still China first, but not too far distant. Second is India with 3.9 thousand units. So this is the summary. China in the last 20 years all over the place. India, a distant largest, second largest investor. Turkey, outside Europe, the only other country. In spinning, Bangladesh and Vietnam. Uzbekistan, comes up in some segments like spinning. Egypt at the moment is on everybody's mind as a winner of these very complicated disruptive times. And outside Asia, very little investment. It happens everywhere, but on a very small scale. Now, production cost comparison, and that brings me to the end, because competitiveness is very important, as you pointed out, and we do that comparison along the whole value chain from spinning down to finishing. Now, cost of knitting, you see India positioned very well cost-wise in 2023. Of course, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Indonesia, they are all in the same range, very close to each other. Very important, on the right-hand side, is the number in brackets, the 1.36 under labor. So while labor only contributes to 17% of the cost, the variation between countries is the biggest in labor, 1.36. In auxiliary materials, it's the smallest, which means that the cost for chemicals and other auxiliary materials is more or less the same in most of the countries. Cost of finishing of 1 kilogram of single jersey knitted fabric. You see India is much more on the left-hand side, but it's not too far away, from all the other countries. And again, labor is the differential factor when it comes to competitiveness. From a cost perspective, that's only cost. It doesn't say much about productivity. It's just a cost picture, and only in the manufacturing area. The total cost of this finished single jersey from spinning down to finishing, very important to realize that finishing makes up 50% of the total cost. So you have to concentrate on finishing, and India is somewhere in the middle, as you can see, so very competitive cost-wise, and a few years ago, yes, cost would have been everything. Nowadays, it's not about cost only, it's about free trade agreements, it's about tariffs, it's about compliance, it's about meeting expectations, traceability, and so on. So the world has become much more complex, but costs, nevertheless, at the end of the day, are very important, and the return of investment has to be met. And last but not least, sustainability plays an important role, maybe not in the last 10 years, but in the next 10 years. And here you see the carbon footprint of India when it comes to a finished knit single jersey and the footprint created. And you see Brazil, Italy, USA are doing quite well, because their energy comes from renewable energies to a large extent, whereas in India, as you can see, still a lot of CO2 is involved when it comes to production of products. So that becomes an important factor in the future if you want to meet your customers' expectations in Europe and elsewhere when it comes to climate change and CO2 emissions. So all I wanted to say is we provide data that helps the global textile value chain to get a better picture, overall picture of where a country stands. Of course, these are average data, at least here in the cost comparison study, but it helps to get a better feel for the position within the global value chain. And China was the dominant player, and India, and I want to reiterate what our friend Navdeep Singh said, has this opportunity in the next 20 years to really become one of the dominant players, catching up to India on a different path, as he pointed out, different conditions, different path, but the time has never been as good as now. With that, I leave it to the panelists to discuss all the other questions that the moderator will challenge us with, and invite everybody to consider attending our conference in Brazil, because we are a global federation, so our Brazilian friends invite us in October to come to wonderful Fortaleza, where you can build and improve your international network that helps to conquer markets that you might not be aware of at the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing a very insightful presentation with us and your perspectives. With this, ladies and gentlemen, let's deep dive into our panel discussion. I request our session moderator, Mr. Prashant Agarwal, to take the session forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, and thank you, Deep. Thank you, Schindler, for really setting the tone, because now you have all statistics with you. Updeep ji really pointed out in terms of what it takes to win. So whether it's done in China or any other country, so he really pointed it out. But now let's go and deliberate that how India should scale. What are the internal benchmarks it should set for itself so that they are globally competitive. That's what the whole theme is. And I have some very eminent panelists who will talk about it. Just to, for the panelists also, just to put things in perspective, what we are talking about, that today we have $194 billion market for India. Domestic is $157 billion, $37 billion exports, and we want to go to 350. So to go to 350, what we need to do, like it's a higher target, higher ambition, but if we set our building blocks in place, then we can achieve this. That's the whole idea. When we talk about building blocks, first is investments, and then we talk about once investments are done, how do you market it? And when market, you talk about creating those institutions, like Bharat Tax is one of that. So how do you create institutions so that it helps even MSME to market it? And then building blocks like whether you skilling of people, your factor cost, manufacturing excellence, putting smart factories. So all of these are building blocks which will help you, and creating partnerships to have the flow of people, know-how, everything. So I think keeping these in focus, let's start our discussion, and I will start with Mr. Juan. First, I will like my panelists to give their views on this subject, and then we'll take specific subjects and deliberate further into it. Juan, over to you.
Thank you so much for your introduction. Thank you, ASOCHAM, for inviting me to this interesting panel discussion. I think after the speech of chairman, it's complicated to say something because he make a great speech regarding the subject we are talking today. But if I will say something, I think the word for the future is innovation. But thinking in innovation like a concept through the people, and people make innovation in a different and in the different perspective. When we talk about, when I think about innovation, I think about innovation regarding the relation between people. I think innovation regarding the logistics. I think the innovation going faster.
somebody, it's like they are collaborating as one unit, and like it's not that a transaction to transaction that you are collaborating. So you give an order. So I think this is what India, having 80% plus MSME, I think collaboration without ego, and with a hub and spoke model where we have anchors like all the big players sitting over here, and then they are marketing and somebody else is supplying and collaborating. I think we'll discuss further about it. Over to you, Neeraj, further.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. If we look at the infrastructure to be built in country for any industry, there could be different ways of looking at it. One is a physical infrastructure, that's road, ports, airports, etc., which the government is doing in a good way for India. Second is the policy framework, which is all the FTAs and other things which can enable the country to export more, which is again being taken very, very aggressively by the government, and I'm sure is going to give us results. The other two areas where the industry has to work to create that comparative advantage. One is the availability of raw material at competitive prices if we have to grow this kind of a growth, both cotton as well as synthetics, where the capacities have to be built up, the more and more products have to be available, and it has to be done in a way that it's available to the industry so that we can be competitive in all the segments. Fourth, most important in my view, where the industry has to come together, be it the availability of people, be it our colleges, be it everyone knows processing is, there's hardly any professionals available in the country. But what is the industry doing to create or build that capability? How much are we investing into the school, colleges to look at that? Even if the opportunity comes, even if the raw material is available, do we have people to manage that? I have my doubts on that. The industry could come together, look at how we spent on those colleges, how we come together. Every industry is doing lots of CSR today. I think that could be one example or one idea which, in my view, has to be looked at if we want to really grow. Two, similarly, if I look at a couple of more ideas, I'm only talking of where the industry has to come together. Talk of the cotton productivities. Now, I think every one of us, we have to look at the kind of yields we have is not going to give us competitive advantage. Can industry come together, work on one or two states where the government does the partnership with us, and we look at, can this 440 kilo can go it to 700 kg, 800 kg, and the industry comes together. All the resources available with the industry today, but those pains have to be taken by us if we want to really, really grow and create those competitive advantages. There was a time in India, there was a big scam of bills of exchange happened in one of the bank. And after that, suddenly the banking industry, they came together. This has happened because every bank has its own platform. There's no exchange of information available to the other bank if he's allowed any bill of exchange or he issued any bill of exchange. So they came together immediately in 6 months' time. Every bank contributed about 10 crore rupees, created a single platform, and after that we've never looked at those kind of things. Similarly, today everyone is talking of sustainability. Everyone is talking of all the data to be available for them, for either the organics and those kind. But every company is struggling to create those data. Everyone is working because everyone has its own systems. So you want any traceability to happen. I think the amount of work we are doing is unimaginable. Can we have one single platform where every industry comes together, starting from ginning, spinning, knitting, weaving, garmenting, and whatever customer requires, you don't require to relook at the data. Now, this is something which the government will not do, the industry has to do. I think we are at a time where definitely India is being looked at as a very, very serious player for the textiles. But we have to create those advantages so that the ultimate customer can take advantage of that. But the way we are operating today, everyone is investing, but it's in their own company, is in their own industry, in their own textile segmentation. Unless we think some of the projects where the ultimate customer gets an advantage. You talked about the MSME cluster. It's a fact. In China, one order comes in. I've seen the factory where suddenly 400, 500 TFOs. Anyone creating a single yarn, goes to them within next 2 days, 3 days, the material comes back to them. But we don't have those kind of a thought process to collaborate with each other. Now, my very strong belief, once the government has created the infrastructure and the policy framework, is now the industry which has to create it. Now the customer looks at capacities, the customer looks at the speed. Every 5 years, 10 years in life, all of us require some changes, be it our home, be it our own personalities. With age, at times we want to enjoy the life. After a couple of years, we want to consolidate or we want to take rest, we want to work on our health. And that's what we do very, very conveniently and very successfully. Same as the industry situation. Every 5-10 years, the need of the customer will change. There was a time when people were talking of only capacities. Today is a time people are talking of only the speed, innovation. All these online platforms suddenly give a different way of the speed of the organizations. And anyone who is successful, they have a huge business. So with the times, I think all these changes which are likely to happen or which are happening, the entire industry has to think what next for us. And unless we keep looking at it in a collaborative way, it's going to be difficult for every industry or every company to compete on that. I think it's a time for us where the opportunity is there. India is being looked at very serious player. Lots of things are happening, but we require to do much more as industry now. So I think that's the way I'm looking at it in case we want to really take the second meaningful position in the world. We'll have to relook at what we are doing and we have to really, really collaborate with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeraj ji. And I think you touched on very, very important points like initially infra and policy and then people part, then manufacturing excellence. And then I think what even Juan talked about, collaboration without ego, there comes seamlessly connected. So you can be seamlessly connected when, everybody comes together and really deliver what we are talking about in agility and speed. I think we'll touch some of the building blocks. Thanks for such good inputs. I think over to Manmohan ji for that further.
I think very, very important what both the panelists has spoken about the innovation. For me, the innovation needs to be simplest, needs to be at speed, and needs to be scalable. But when it comes to where we are as India, India is at a juncture where where quantum jump can happen. One is the domestic demand is growing, and on the second part is the FTAs are being signed, where we will have the possibility to increase our market share in the global market. Definitely, industry collaboration is very, very important from end to end, from ginning to retail. But if you see the voices when it goes to the ministry, when it goes to the industry bodies, we have different voices. For that, collaboration is the key. We need to understand what we need to do differently. But at the same time, when it comes to the level playing field, we need to see each component of value chain, where we lack, what we need to do to make sure that we are at a level playing field. There is no cost disadvantage on levies, on duties, and accordingly we need to build our cost structure. The more important thing, because we are in cluster, for example, 80% of spinning is in Tamil Nadu, fabric making is somewhere else, processing is somewhere else, garmenting is somewhere else. This is something which will also have cost disadvantage and also the disadvantage on service the order on time. So although PM Mitra Park, all these schemes are coming up, but it will not be a game changer, because we are talking about 350 billion and 100 billion for the exports. And we need to think differently as an industry, as a fraternity, and see what we can do. Keeping our ego aside, keeping our individual businesses interests aside, take us as one of the theme. For example, if you see, there is one example which you must have been witness. Home textile is the only industry which has seen the scale, where you can see 40% of US import is from India. Why it has happened? Because somebody has taken a bet. They started investing in large scale clusters. And today, most of the towel when you go to US or to bed sheets are made in India. China is not even closer to what share India is holding in US market. Similar model we need to replicate for the apparels and denim and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Manmohanji. And I think what you talked about, and this is what I have pinpointed, where we'll say that whether it's a cluster growth or we are trying to develop mega parks, how all of this have to be brought together to see that India adopt a policy which will take it to the target that we are talking about. And then innovation is definitely, and innovation is something which everybody is pointing out. So I have these points. Over to you, Nilesh, for your views.
Thank you. So some great points have been made. I'll maybe just give a little bit of context on how I think this topic is great. If you want to grow, the only way to become big is to get the global value chains into the country. And what the global value chain means that, you know, you have a retailer who ultimately sells the product, but they buy from a garmenter, the garmenter buys from a fabric, the fabric buys from a yarn, the yarn buys from a fiber. The greater share of that value chain comes to, greater share of the large value chain comes to your country, the better is your share in the overall industry. And the reason China is so dominant is because the large customers, large parts of the value chains are located in China. So ultimately only the finished product goes to China, but everything else goes to the West. But everything else before that happens inside China. So the more and more of that global value chain you can locate, that makes it better for the country. That's a great strategy, but it's not an easy strategy to execute because global value chains don't move that easily. You take large global markets, stable market, they'll grow anywhere 2%, 4%. In that, trying for a country to steal share from another country is very hard. You have to be significantly better than that country. You can't just be equal. And you saw some of the data that ITMF showed on the kind of spindles that are being imported into China. There are several times that of being imported in India. Already they are at a huge scale. They're like almost 40% of textiles gets manufactured there. And that is because there are 2-3 levers that make this difference. One is scale. All customers will go to essentially the large suppliers. Okay, by default they go to the large suppliers. So if you're not a large supplier, you automatically have a less chance of getting into their zone of consideration. In India, building large companies has been a problem. There are a few examples here. Vardhaman is huge, Welspun is huge. These are large companies, but to achieve our aspirations, we need maybe 20 Vardhamans, maybe 20 Welspuns. I mean, that is what, if we talk about 100 billion, you need 20 of those, okay? So it's a huge task to create those. And if you ask these gentlemen, it has not been easy for them to build what they build. Our policy landscape has suffered from import restrictions. It has suffered from disabilities in cost. So one is scale, the second is disabilities in cost. When you're making a fabric or making an apparel, the customer ultimately compares your cost of that 1 meter of apparel, 1 meter of fabric, 1 apparel with what they get in other countries. And that cost, they showed some examples of where those cost differences lie. There are 2-3 areas where our costs are high. Raw material costs tend to be high in India, some of them due to duties, some of them due to low productivity of, let's say, things like cotton. Our labor costs are higher because minimum wages in many states have been increased beyond what is actually the real wage in that state. Our overtimes rate that we pay, which is double, is highest in the world. Okay, even the WLO, but the ILO recommends a 1.5 times as overtime rate. Our overtime rates are 2x. So it impacts the organized sector. In the unorganized sector, nobody really pays those, so it doesn't really matter. Our cost of capital in the country is high, almost 6 to 8% difference compared to countries like China. So if somebody imports all machinery, capital machine equipment is very expensive, and in textiles typically for $100 of revenue, you will almost need $100 of capital investment. Okay. Now, if that $100 of capital investment is 18% expensive because there is a GST on that, and the cost of capital is another 6 to 8%. So compared to a Chinese company, you are anywhere between 15 to 20% more expensive in terms of capital costs. So that just makes it difficult for companies. Third challenge is responsiveness. If the entire value chain is in one country, then it's easier to meet demand quickly. So when everything is inside China, China is able to meet demand for an apparel in sometimes 45 days, sometimes 60 days. When the fabric goes from China to Vietnam and from Vietnam it goes to the West, it adds another 30 days to it. Okay? When the same thing has to come to India, it adds another, few days to it. So the more the value chains get located inside a country, the better it is. So the Mitra Park is a good idea, but the 7 Mitra Parks is not enough. We probably need, 25, 30 such Mitra Parks. And each Mitra Park itself is not enough because it's only 1,000 acres. That one Mitra Park needs to be surrounded by maybe 10 apparel parks around it, which can consume all the fabric that is made in those apparel parks. Because if you crowd all the apparel investment in that area, there just won't be enough people to meet the demand. So you need to kind of spread that out. So there are a few ideas that need to be done at a policy level. Structurally, we need to think differently. And I really like some of the ideas that were laid out here in terms of collaboration between industries, whether it is creating skilled manpower, whether it is creating good work culture at the worker level, whether it is increasing productivity of cotton, whether it is lobbying for common policies or standards around minimum wages and so on. A lot of collaboration can actually help. So, yeah, aspirational and therefore challenging, but not impossible.
Thank you, Nilesh. I think from here on, let me take on some of the building blocks that we talked about, and let me first raise this to what Nilesh talked about of scale. When, Juan, I'll start with you, and in terms of, is this industry all about scale, or we can have MSMEs connected to the bigger players, and you really always need to set up this scale factories, or scale can be achieved through collaboration between MSME and anchor? You can talk about hub and spoke that you talk about. What kind of model which will work for this industry? Because this is a never-ending debate where we are talking about, let's set up more of Welspuns, let's set up more of Vardhmans and Tridents and all those. So how do we really structure? While today also more than 50% everywhere is MSME. So how do you structure?
Yeah. Sometimes it's complicated for me, and today is really complicated because we beat France yesterday, and that seems something impossible because we are a team. We are not a selection of people that make a difference. But my question mark for India is, India wants to join the world or wants to conquer the world? How India want to grow? In volume? In margin? That is for me are the questions, because if we saw the figures, and you saw the countries, there is 10 countries in the figures item F. Yes, the world has a lot of countries. And textile is not only fashion. Textile is a lot of things more than fashion. And we need to think, we need to respect all the countries, and we need to collaborate between countries in order to be better all together. Because one of the biggest problems we have in front of us is if we push to other countries, the other countries are against you. And what the things happen today is that reactions from Europe making taxes to the package from China, Brazil being afraid for the same thing, and the reactions in the United States similar, and in the end, the world is improving through this way, or is not improving. That means there is for our future, of course, like Neeraj said, are challenging times and full of opportunities. How build up is our responsibility. But this question marks for me are so important because I think one of the leaders for the future is your country, is India. No doubt about it. How India manage will be very important for the rest of the world. Because you have knowledge, you have people, you have illusion for be better in the future, and you have technology, you have everything. How you manage is a big responsibility for you because the world will depend on you in the way you manage all your skills. But for me, it's a challenging times, and I have a lot of doubts, I'm sorry. I have not the
No, I think
crystal ball,
it's very important
but,
and good point.
But I think that is my position about that.
Yeah, I tell you, while you are talking about challenging times here, and somebody has to lead, because in this uncertain times, everybody wants their own way. It's like making America great again, making Brazil, making Europe great again. So everybody wants to be great in itself. So collaboration is an issue. So somebody has to lead and work towards it. I think you need to go to the drawing board and really work out how it needs to be done. Very important.
That is the organizations and we have ITMF try to do, is
Yeah.
join people and to try to have some ideas together
Yeah.
and to concrete these ideas.
Absolutely,
Okay?
absolutely.
That is the most important thing.
Yeah,
To think is not enough. You
Yeah.
must do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a very good thought there. And Neeraj, to you, like just on the same point, we talked about collaboration between larger players and MSMEs, because one is collaboration one talked about globally, needs to be done, somebody has to anchor it, but within the country also, like, because everybody cannot go and market themselves. So what's your views on that?
You know, if you look at the Indian history, lots of MSME and SME has been successful based upon the tax differentials which was available in the different states earlier. So is one state giving you a tax incentive, people will go there, put up a small factory, and they will be competing based upon that only, rather than looking at the product value chain. And still, I feel there are lots of mentality even today also for the SME as well as SME to work on that cost advantage only, rather than looking at a collaboration. The large organizations only cannot do the justice to the business or the global requirement which the customer has. Because it's not only what you have the capacity. When you are dealing with the larger brands, their all peaking requirement comes to the vendor. So they will be working with 2, 3, 4, 7 vendors, and whatever is the peak requirement or a change in product mix, that's their requirement that the company should be in a position to do that. No company can do everything by its own. So you're required to collaborate with maybe 10, 20, 30 people where the compliances has to be looked at, and all those people who are collaborating should be on the same thought process and a collaboration model, that in terms of compliances, in terms of quality, and in terms of the practices and the fairness to the business has to be there, which unfortunately is a big gap even today also in this country, as I mentioned, because the history was very, very different. Having said that, unless we do this collaboration, it's going to be very, very difficult for few organizations to grow. Nilesh mentioned, you know, when we are talking to the bigger brands in the world, their confidence will improve in case there are larger organizations, more than 1, 2, 3 in a particular country. And then they are supported with the MSME and the SME, where all this job works or based upon the need, you can continue to grow. I think we require to really, today that confidence is not there. The all large organizations which have become slowly, I'll say, competitive as well as compliance. For them to believe on us SME or MSME is as of now difficult. But unless we do that, as a country, is going to be very, very, very difficult for us to grow. Because one company cannot create all the capacities which the customers require. How do you take care of all the products? How do you take care of all the peaking requirements they have? That's the only way to look at collaborating with each other. But I think, again, industry has to come together and think what could be the right model. Every large company has a tie-up with 10, 20, 30 companies. So it's a win-win situation for everyone, for the MSME also and for the large organization also. There's no other way than to do this. Unfortunately, since that model is not there, every large company is becoming more larger, creating more capacity. They have the capability to do that, they have the assets to do that, they have the resources to do that. And only 2, 3, 4, 10 companies will not give us the leadership position in the world, for sure.
Thank you, Neeraj ji. And I think that this is what I think we need to work on a clean slate. Step-by-step approach won't work. So we might say that, no, it's not easy to collaborate. But as Juan pointed out, collaboration without ego means go on a clean slate, see that, okay, these are my 10 partners. And I tell you, if, as you rightly said, if few models succeed, then people follow. So if I go on drawing board and explain everything, nobody will understand after the conference or after the meeting. But if few successful model, are there, people will start following because they will start believing that this can make them help, this can help them make money. I think this is what is needed. Thanks for this, and while I am really short of time, they've given me 10 more minutes only, and we have such a good panelist, but okay, Manmohan ji, to you. One important point is innovation. We talked about product development, we talk about, because Juan also said, do we want to earn margins or we talk about scale? And unless and until we don't understand consumer needs, develop product, because product development is not about sample and like, so, and you have done it, you have good big centers and you are working with industry. How do we institutionalize this? How do we, instead of one or two companies, as a country, how do we institutionalize this so that it becomes really important pillar for our growth?
Let me take 1 minute on clarifying that when you have big setup, for example, let's take Birla only. If you are in Kharach, we have at least 20, 30 MSMEs attached to us. Okay. So MSMEs are supporting the bigger organization to somebody supplying packing material, somebody supplying sewing thread, somebody supplying something else. But when it comes to the question which Paresh was asking, is it we want to be volume or the scale player, we want to be the margin player. But at the end of the day, business is margin. If you do at scale also, it has to be make sense, business sense. So, if it comes to the export or domestic, scale is very, very important. That gives you the leverage to distribute your cost. And at the same time, you will be able to quickly turn around the orders into reality. When it comes to innovation, innovation start from for example, in our case, it sometimes take more than 3 to 4 years to bring one small innovation in the process. For example, recycle, for example, traceability, for example, bringing different variants of lyocell. The innovation itself is, one is to need to understand the end consumer need, what they want, what are the different attributes we are going to offer through that innovation, and is that innovation is scalable, is that innovation is at speed. Otherwise, innovation you can take 10 years and you are not reaching to 1 ton or 2 ton or 5 tons. So when we at Birla, we talk about innovation, we try to see how quickly we can make it reality and what is the possibility of scaling it up. For example, with the regulation change in US, now all the mattresses needs to be flame retardant, which was not there till 2025 or 2022. 27, 28, the regulation will come into force. So people are seeking the low-cost flame retardant fiber, which can replace glass wool. Glass wool 90 GSM sheet will not be costing more than $50. We don't see any fiber, whether it's polyester, whether it's viscose, or any other fiber, which can give the ready solution within that $50 price to meet that particular 90 GSM requirement. So everybody is working, we are working, a lot of Chinese people are working, not only in viscose, but multi-fiber people are working. As of now, the solution people got is, as against 90 GSM, is 250 GSM, as against $50, it is $2.50. How this can replace? So when the similar example is when people are talking about recycled fiber, there is a eco passport, there is a regulation when people will be seeking that one brand has to take a pledge that we will be using 50% recycled content. But how you will be able to scale it up? For example, in India, when we collect the used garments, you don't even know what content it particular garment will have. Either it's 50% polyester, is it 10% polyester, is it 80% cotton. Till the time you don't know it, how you will segregate it, how you will recycle it. So we have put up a 15 TPD facility in Vilayat plant, and we need 15 tons of each day 100% cotton waste. We can't get it. So we find a solution, let us go to Tirupur, try to talk to the people if they can give us the cutting table waste, because cutting table waste is, till there you know it is cotton or not. Once the t-shirt is made, if the tag is intact, you can know, otherwise you don't know. We have signed a MOU with the Textile Committee and put up a collection center in Navi Mumbai. We don't know what is coming in. So we are continuously trying to use that facility and offer the product to different brands. But as of now, it's a big, big challenge. So innovation at speed and scalable is very, very important. This is what we always try to do. We have 7 innovation center. We have innovation center for pulp. We have innovation center for fiber. We have innovation center for entire textile value chain, from spinning to weaving to knitting to processing and to garmenting. So innovation is the key. With innovation, if you can do it at scale and make sure that scale gives you the margin, that's a winning game.
Thank you, Manmohanji. And I think I already have the slip to close, so though I have certain more points, but again, I will just quickly request everyone, while we have so many points that we have listed down, we'll make a note and then ASSOCHAM will present to the government also. If you can give one pointer out of this so that we can prioritize that this is the key. One by one, I think, Nilesh, I will start with you. Just one pointer, and which is out of all we discussed, most important part for you.
So I would say the point that I made and the point that the others made. Point I made, create national champions. Okay, like the way Korea has done, you have Samsung and LG, Japan has done Honda, Suzuki. These are companies that have driven growth of that industry. So we should try to create some national champions. The other option to that is a cluster-led growth, okay? Which is we only have one cluster that we can talk about, like Tirupur. If you can create, 20 such Tirupurs, and there is a model for creating a cluster. It works in jewelry, it works in many industries. So I would say focus on these two models, the national champions and cluster-led growth.
Thank you. Manmohan.
I will talk about my business. So for example, we are requesting the policy to be make sure that all the people, whether it's a fiber, whether it's fabric, whether it's yarn, we should have the level playing field. In the level playing field, for example, in viscose, we have a 8% cost disadvantage only on account of levies and duties. How can I be supplying the fiber at the same price where the value chain is getting at? If I have to make 5% margin and my cost advantage is 8%, my fiber will be 13% higher than Chinese, or at least 8% higher than Chinese. This is something we are requesting, that only levies and duties. We have submitted the request multiple times, but we are still hoping it will solve one day. Second and foremost is with the GST 2.0, it become inverter for us now. 18% we paying on pulp, and rest of the value chain is 5%.
Right, thanks. Second.
For that you need, if I say about what is our...
Sir, one pointer.
Wait a minute. 2030 target for India is, for that, in fiber industry, only in fiber which I deal with, we have to make at least 18,000 crore investment to meet that requirement. And with the cotton shortage, lyocell need another 10,000 crore of investment. So if 28,000 crore of investment is needed in fiber industry, why should I invest if it doesn't have the level playing field?
No, I agree. I think this is a point which needs to be taken up with the government. Yeah, Neeraj ji. One pointer.
Yeah, industry collaboration on skilling as well as cotton productivity.
Thank you. I think well taken. Yeah, one.
For me, seeing the things from Europe, international clusters, having the opportunity to add values to the chain is one big opportunity we have in front of us.
Yeah, great. Updeep ji.
It is basically, I would stress upon skilling. I'm not going to repeat anything what has been said. It's the skilling and machinery industry. We need to collaborate on these two aspects to go to the next level.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was also saying that the skilling of the labor force is very important because there's a global shortage in our industry, and if India is educating and skilling its labor force and making its industry more attractive vis-a-vis other sectors within India, that's a very important pre-requirement for success.
Thanks to all the speakers. And I think we have really noted a lot of points, a lot of building blocks, and we'll put it together, Ubdeep ji, because if I start summing up, because from building blocks of collaboration, which was the key, to talking about margins, to talk about scale, to talk about people skills, to talk about innovation, developing those institutions. I think we discussed a lot of things, and these are actually was the topic, that how do you really build India's strength to take it where it deserves. I think thanks to all the panelists for really contributing deep, and we'll build it up. Thanks to all the audience also. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our esteemed panelists and our session moderator for curating such a wonderful session. Please give a huge round of applause for our honorable dignitaries on the stage. I would now like to invite Mr. Basudev Mukherjee, Assistant Secretary General, ASSOCHAM, to deliver the vote of thanks and conclude the session.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of ASSOCHAM, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to each one of you for joining us today for this very special session on scaling through synergy, building local capability to power global textile value chains. Very special thank you to our esteemed panelists, Mr. Updeep Singh Chatrat, Dr. Christian Schindler, Mr. Prashant Agarwal, Mr. Juan Perez, Mr. Neeraj Jain, Mr. Manmohan Singh, and Mr. Nilesh Hundekari. Thank you for sharing your time and deep insights on strengthening manufacturing, technology, quality, and compliance. Your perspectives have given all of us practical takeaways to carry forward. To our industry members and senior government officials, your presence signals shared commitment. We have to position India as a trusted and competitive textile sourcing hub. These conversations only matter when industry and policy makers move together, and today was a strong step in that direction. A very special thanks to the Bharat Tex team for the seamless arrangements that made this session possible. We began this hour with one goal, to find synergy. I believe we leave with ideas, connections, and a renewed sense of purpose to scale India's textile value chains globally. Thank you once again, and I look forward to continuing this dialogue beyond this room. Thank you.
Thank you. I request all our dignitaries to kindly raise for a group photograph. I would also like to request Mr. Basudev to join them. I would request ASSOCHAM office bearers to also come on stage. Thank you. With this, we officially conclude this strategic session. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. For any suggestion and feedback, you may write to yashpal@assocham.com. We are ready to take all your feedbacks and observations. Thank you.